Hi, this is Carrie Amaro, and welcome to day 8 of our 12-day series where we'll be talking about leverage, the healthy kind and the dangerous kind, and how to spot it and some remedial actions you can start taking today. So, are you ready? Let's get started. Now, let's start off with what everybody knows. Borrowing isn't the issue. Blind leverages. Most leaders, most business owners don't fail because they took on too much debt. They struggle because they misunderstood what that debt really required of that business. Now, I want to start by asking you that question. Do you understand what the debt you took on requires from your business? And that's the concept of today's discussion, is looking at your specific situation. Some look at total debt and panic, or worse, they look at revenue growth and feel safe. But the real story of leverage is told somewhere else. It's told in the combination of your EBITDA coverage, your cash timing, the bank's perspective of your risk level. And by the time those signals tighten where you feel it, it's usually too late to react calmly. And today that separation starts. We start looking at you understanding what healthy leverage looks like versus that dangerous leverage. And I'll also throw in here 3 ways where you can spot dangerous leverage and 3 ways to look at how to remediate it before it becomes a crisis. So let's get started. Before we do, I'm going to say what I always say, this is just data. Let's go in willing to see the facts, the context, so that we can execute, because that's the main purpose here, is execution. Now, what is healthy leverage? How does it feel? Healthy leverage exists when EBITDA comfortably covers your debt service, when cash flow timing supports those payments, when any covenant requirements feel stable with a cushion. A business should have flexibility, and healthy leverage feels like controlled pressure, predictable obligation, strategic use of your capital that's used to accelerate your growth. It feels organic in a way. It feels just part of your operations. Dangerous leverage, however, happens when that debt service starts consuming that operations flexibility, and not only in cash, but literally your operations. When slight EBITDA coverage starts causing that volatility, when liquidity becomes tight and covenants start feeling like a moving target, that's dangerous leverage. If you can even imagine the emotions that that thought brings, constant pressure, no margin forever, reactive decision making, and honestly, quite frankly, to be honest, leadership fatigue. And often the income statement still looks fine. We talk about this in our debit and credit sessions, in our financial statement relationship sessions, and in other video sessions that I have online. It's so important not only to concentrate on an EBITDA or a debt service ratio, but to understand the context, the story behind those numbers. And one of the reasons for that is leverage. Because quite honestly, not only is leverage super important for you and your day-to-day operations, it's also how banks view you. And they don't necessarily view you the way you view yourself. So I want to take a minute and touch on that just a little bit with you right now. How do you look at your leverage? How much money do you owe? Can we grow into it? Is our revenue increasing? These are typical questions that business owners ask. You focus on the size of your debt, growth projections, and strategic intent, whereas banks don't worry about that specifically. They pretty much look at, hey, how stable is your EBITDA? What is your debt coverage ratio? How quickly does liquidity tighten under stress? Because let's face it, right? Stress is a part of any business. And if that's not factored into your plan, that tells the bank something about how you manage your business. It can create the possibility of them asking the question of how viable your investment is to them. They focus on things like cash generation, debt service coverage, and downside risk. To them, leverage isn't about ambition, it's about the certainty of repayment. And that's simple. So now let's talk about 3 ways you can spot that dangerous leverage. Number 1, that shrinking EBITDA cushion, that small dip in EBITDA that starts triggering covenant concerns, reduced coverage ratios, and every month starts feeling to you like lender anxiety. I want to pause here because this is not an indication of, oh, I have a leverage issue. This is an area where you have exposure issues, because slight changes in EBITDA should not derail your business. So I want you to take time and think about that. Let's move on to number 2, liquidity tie-ins despite profitability. If you're profitable but constantly watching cash, if you're delaying payments or stretching out your vendors, your leverage is likely outpacing your cash cycle. I want to say that again. If you're delaying payments or stretching out those vendors, your leverage is likely outpacing your cash cycle. We do have our signature program coming up, or if the wait list is open, please sign up. We talk about these relationships more closely so that you can execute on your desired results. You can get information on that on thewealthexec.com or listen to our masterclass. Okay, but let's move on to number 3. Now, the third way to spot when there's dangerous operational leverage is when there's no room for operational mistakes. If one bad quarter feels catastrophic, you're afraid to invest, or leadership decisions feel like reactive, your leverage has removed your operational flexibility. And that's dangerous. Why? Because businesses are continuously moving and shifting. Just like in life, you need that wiggle room where necessary. So let's start talking about those 3 ways that you can potentially mitigate that leverage risk. Number 1, recenter around EBITDA coverage. Don't just track your debt levels, track your EBITDA stability. We talked about trailing 12 months. Compare it to the story that your debt service coverage ratio trend is telling you. And look at sensitivity scenarios as to why that particular period looked that way. It's so much fun to do, and it's so informative for you to make changes. And I want you to start asking questions. What happens if my EBITDA drops 10 to 15%? If the answer that you feel when you say my EBITDA dropped 10 to 15%, if you start getting a panic in you, you need to adjust. Okay, so start with that quick test. Now let's go into number 2. Protect liquidity before growth. We're talking about new hires, new equipment, new expansion. The question that you need to be asking is, does this decision tighten my cash or strengthen my coverage? Growth that weakens liquidity is not growth, it's pressure. All right. Now let's move to number 3, which I'm going to get a bit assertive with you here. Don't manage to align. Create coverage buffers, liquidity reserves, build scenarios. Because the moment you're negotiating from a point of weakness, you already lost that leverage with your lender. Okay. So in closing, debt isn't the enemy, blind leverage is. Healthy leverage gives you acceleration, flexibility, strategic momentum. Dangerous leverage, on the other hand, gives you things like pressure, reactivity, and leadership fatigue. So don't just ask, how much debt do we have? Start asking questions on how comfortably we can carry that debt, because that answer determines your options, right? Your confidence and your ability to lead calmly under pressure. All right. Yay. So I'll see you on day 9. I hope you're enjoying our 12-day, the rhythm of mindset one day and business the next. That flow is intentional because you don't run your business in a silo, disconnected from your emotional input, energy, and presence. That's not how real execution works. True wealth is created when you learn how to master both. And that journey always starts with the self. It always starts with you. Okay. So for additional resources and to explore how we can work together, join me for our masterclass or visit thewealthexec.com. This is Carrie Amaro. See you soon.